Hello, and welcome to the Delusional Boyfriend Book Club. My name is Courtney, and I'll be your host. And today we're talking about 2025's Manhwa of the month, which is Our Sunny Days by Jung Suk Chon. This is a heartwarming BL about two men, one 28 years old and one 36 years old, who meet in a mountain village and have the biggest green flag love story of all time. I'll go ahead and start with our spoiler-free summary. We meet our main character, Sung-ho, as he's moving him and his daughter from the US, where he was in the military, to a small village in Korea. He originally had been born in Korea and was in an orphanage, and then grew up, went to the military in Korea, and then enlisted in the US Army, which is, I guess, something I learned you can do if you are a Korean military member. You can go to the US and be in one of their regiments. So while he's there, his girlfriend comes to him after they've broken up and gives him a baby. And this is after he's kind of like living his active duty life. So he's living on a military base. His ex-girlfriend comes to him and gives him a baby and says, "I've done my part by giving birth to her. Now you need to raise her." And at this point, he decides he doesn't want to raise her in the US. He wants to go back to Korea, where he's from, and raise her there. So he leaves and goes to this mountain village, where he meets the leader of the clan, of the village, the chieftain, if you will. And he is working at a convenience store down the road from the house that Sung-ho's just moved into. So when he goes to walk around and see what's up, he goes to this convenience store, and Mr. Kwon Haebam is there, and they kind of get off on a wrong foot. That's how our characters meet, and from that point on, we see Sung-ho raising his daughter in this new house in this tiny village and interacting with the different members of the community, with this village leader kind of by his side. We have our tropes going on here. We've got found family, we have paternal love. This is a very familial story. It's about parenting, it's about raising a child, it's about finding a spouse to live your life with and be a partner to you and your baby. It's very wholesome. We have a lot of healing from trauma in this story. There's a lot of inner child healing, which I found so adorable and actually really helpful. This story made me want to work on myself and made me want to kind of be a better person. And I think if fiction can make you feel those feelings, then it's really done its job. We also have an age gap. We have our main character, Sung-ho, who is 28 years old, and then Mr. Kwon, so either Mr. Kwon or Haebam, whatever you want to call him, those are both, it's his first and last names. So Haebam is 36 years old. So we've got this 8-year age gap, which when you're 28 and 36 doesn't feel like a lot, but Haebam says time and time again, he sees Sung-ho as a baby, and I think that's really cute. I do like that kind of age gap, especially once we're into our late 20s and 30s. I think an age gap works a lot better and is a lot healthier when one character has just a little bit more life experience so that they can provide some wisdom in the relationship, but not so much that there is like a power offset or a power dynamic that feels unbalanced or unfair. This is definitely a green flag story. Both characters are very good to each other. There's no toxicity from the start to the finish. We have 50 episodes out at the time of this recording. It is an ongoing story, and there has yet to be a single ounce of red flag or concern about either one of their behavior towards the other. So I really love a green flag story. And then they're definitely opposites attract. So Sung-ho is a little bit more quiet and reserved and very kind and pleasant to be around. Haebam is gruff, and people kind of think he's a little bit of a jerk on the outside. He can be a little bit cold on the outside, a little bit scolding or naggy, or, you know, he just has a little bit of an exterior to him, even though his reputation around town is to be the most helpful person in the village. So he has all of this reputation that he takes care of people, that he does hard work when no one asks it of him, that he organizes things for the village, but he still has this exterior of being kind of cranky. Which I do love. I like a little bit of a crank and somebody who's all sunshine and flowers and smiles. My favorite trope in this story is that Sung-ho is a power bottom. So we have two characters that are very buff and beefy and beautiful. We know by the end of the story that Sung-ho is 175 pounds and Haebom is 230 pounds. So they definitely are both like big, manly men. And I think that's really hot. And I definitely like to see that. Whereas we usually do have a feminized character, which I love because I do like to see myself in these stories a little bit, and a very effeminate character I find beautiful. And I also can relate to as far as kind of getting like thrown around by a man, those kind of things. But when two characters are both beefy and both buff, I think it makes for gorgeous manhwa art. And so this is really fun. It also gives us this dynamic of like equality. There's a scene where they're talking about their weight and they're both trying to pick each other up. And it just really gives like, they're both capable, powerful men. Neither one of them is trying to overpower the other. Neither one of them has like a strength that they're leveraging or using to like as a power dynamic. Both of these characters have had traumatic childhoods. So just to give you some background, Sung-ho was an orphan, like I said. Haebom was also a type of orphan. His father left him when he was very little. He doesn't remember his father. And then his mother was killed in a fire. And that's not really a spoiler. It's something that you find out pretty soon, is that he inherited basically this whole village, all of the land and the crops, and he takes care of the people who lease the land, but he has inherited quite a bit of wealth because his mother died at a very young age, leaving him to be raised, it seems like, by an aunt and uncle who mistreated him. So both of these characters have had to raise themselves and provide for themselves and rely on themselves, and have never really been able to lean on another person. So that's kind of where we're standing with them when they meet each other. And Sung-ho does have this child, this baby, that he wants to make a better life for, and that he wants to parent in a way that he was never parented. So that's where our kind of spoiler-free summary ends, and I'm going to dive right into the spoilers now. I'm going to jump into our spoiler section. So if you haven't watched the story and all of those tropes and the little summary kind of sounds good to you, go ahead and read it now, come back and watch the rest of this review. So we have our main character, Sung-ho, moving to this village. He has a baby strapped onto him, and he moves into a house that seems like it hasn't been lived in a really long time. When he gets there, he takes his baby and he walks to the supermarket, where he's peeking in the window because there's a sign that says, "We'll be back soon." And when he's peeking in the window, someone kind of comes up behind him and is like, "Got you. You must be the thief who's been stealing all the sweets from here." And Sung-ho is like, "Who, me? I'm just here with my baby. I was trying to get some groceries." And this guy named Haebom kind of interrogates him, and they go inside, and Sung-ho buys some ramen. And as he's checking out, he says, "If you need somebody to watch the store, I could always watch the store for you when you're out. That way there's nobody thieving from you." And Haebom rejects his offer, is like, "I don't need anybody else to help me work around here." And Sung-ho kind of storms out. The interaction is pretty poor, and they don't get off on the right foot. When he gets back to his house, it's not long after that Haebom comes to him with a bike and delivers this bike with kind of fresh chains put on it. And he says, "I'm sorry that we didn't get along well at the store when we first met, but I see you have a baby and you'll probably need to be getting around. If you're going to find a job, you're going to need some kind of transportation. So here, take this bike." And at that point, they kind of reconcile and start to get to know each other. As the story goes on, we meet a couple side characters as well. We learn in this interaction when they're exchanging the bike, Sung-ho says, "Do you know who the village leader is? I've been looking for him so that I can introduce myself." And Haebom goes, "That's actually me. I'm the village leader." So Sung-ho then realizes kind of how important this person is in the community he's just joined. And it turns out that Haebom really does have a responsibility to take care of all of the elderly people who lease the land that he's inherited from his mother's estate. So not only does he help them out with their farming, but it seems like he also does some work at the community center to try to get English courses for people who want them. It looks like he helps out at the nursing home. He helps out with farming and all of the cultural parades and activities around town. So this is a really good person for Sung-ho to know if he's going to integrate with the community. As they go around town, we meet some other interesting characters. We meet an old granny who happens to have a granddaughter who we'll meet later on in the story. She lives in Seoul. and she seems to be good friends with Haebom. And we also meet a little boy who's been orphaned who likes to hang around and ask questions of people. So when he first meets Sung-ho, he asks Sung-ho, "Oh my gosh, Dad, is that you?" And Sung-ho is like, "Oh no, I already have one child that I didn't know about. There's no way I have another." And it turns out this kid kind of asks that of every man in the military that he meets because he was abandoned by his own father, and then his mother passed away. So he lives with his grandma. And the average age of the villagers is 68 or something like that. So very old. And we see that there's a lot of loneliness in this community, and that Haebom has this role of kind of taking care of people, making sure that the work that they need to get done is done, and also making sure that they feel seen and noticed. And this little orphan who follows them around, he has a haircut that looks just like Haebom, and he even says later in the story he keeps it long because Haebom keeps his long. And it just feels like Haebom is kind of the father of this community. He makes sure everyone is taken care of, and, acts also as the son to all the elderly people. So making sure that their yards and their roofs are tended to so that everybody can kind of make it through, even if they don't have family of their own. And you can see that this is really coming from his own childhood and being abandoned and neglected. And when he sees this new family that's moved in, Sung-ho and his baby, he does the same thing for them. He immediately is very attentive and very caring and makes up any excuse he can to go check on them and see how they're doing. One thing I love is that other people in the community start to do this as well. Although they're suspicious of Sung-ho and his baby, having just moved there seemingly for no reason, they also start to welcome them. So they drop off, one old man starts dropping off meat and eggs at the doorstep so that this young father and his baby can eat. And we start to see that once that initial suspicion starts to fade, people are welcoming of each other and do take care of each other, and that this is going to be a really beautiful place for Sung-ho to raise his daughter. When we learn that Sung-ho never named his daughter, Haebom suggests that he comes up with a name. And the reason that Sung-ho hasn't named her is that she was given a name on her birth certificate by her mother, but her mother was so distraught when she abandoned this child with her father that she just named the baby Unknown, which is so heartbreaking. And Sung-ho has really taken it to heart that whatever he does name her should be special. So he's been putting it off, and Haebom says, "No, don't worry, I'll name the baby, and once I name the baby, I'll be the baby's godfather." And we can see that he's kind of determined to be a part of these two's lives. Very quickly, that evolves into a kind of chemistry. The two find every single excuse to hang out with each other, and they get closer and closer. And in these moments, I would call it I don't know if I'd call it a slow burn or not. It's a perfectly paced story because you see the chemistry these two have together, but there is the obvious thing going on here, which is that they're in a small village. There's no other gay people around, and Sung-ho has a child, so he's historically been straight. He's only been with women. And Haebom doesn't seem like he's been with anybody in a very long time, but he also gives the appearance of being straight. As they get closer and closer to kissing, holding hands, spending the night with each other, my stomach did that thing. Like, I got butterflies. I had the anticipation. The tension was growing and my excitement was growing. And that is so fun in a story where it really builds and you really believe the tension and the beauty between the two before the moment actually happens. When they do kiss for the first time, Sung-ho had leaned in and kissed him on Haebom on the cheek, and then the next time it happens, he kisses him on the lips, and Haebom is like, "What was that?" And Sung-ho goes, "Oh, I just got caught up in the heat of the moment." And Haebom is like outrightly irritated by that answer. He wants Sung-ho to say, "I kissed you because I like you." So the next time it happens, that first time it happens, Sung-ho is like, "I'm sorry, I didn't know you'd hate it so much. It was just, I got caught up in the heat of the moment." And Haebom says, "Who says I hated it?" And so the next time it happens, Sung-ho makes it very intentional. He makes that move on him, and Haebom loves it. And we're kind of off to the races. These two are never wanting to spend time away from each other. They get each other's phone numbers and they're texting each other all of the time. And I really love the chibis in this story. Haebom is drawn like a sea lion, and he is so freaking cute. Every time he's drawn like that, he just has the most mischievous grin on his face and the biggest blush on his cheeks. And it is very representative of who he is. The character is very, very cute. So the other thing we have here is Haebom is a great cook, and Sung-ho is an awful cook. So every chance they get, Haebom is making dinner for the baby and making dinner for Sung-ho. He's repairing their house. He's helping them garden in this little crop field that they have, where they're starting to learn how to grow vegetables to feed themselves. They have a chicken that they're raising. And Haebom just takes a lot of pride in providing for these two. And I love this story because he does very much so have a lot of money, but he shows that he has so much more to bring to the table than just financial wealth. He can cook, he can clean, he can have emotional reliability, and all of those things I think are usually placed on the feminine character in the story. And we don't see Sung-ho initially employed, so you might think, oh, if he doesn't have a job, he should be doing the cooking. But Haebom never places that on him. Haebom always says, I would love to do this for you. I would love to provide for you. And I think that makes him such an enjoyable character. The other thing we see is Haebom really doting on Sung-ho. He sees their 8-year age gap and he thinks to himself over and over again, he's just a little kid. He's just a baby himself. How can a baby be taking care of a baby? They need me. And he does feel very needed. And I love this trope in this story of everyone wants to be someone's baby. And we see at one point, Sung-ho talks about his child, his daughter, and Haebom, who is older than him. And he's talking to this village girl, this granddaughter of a village granny. And he says, I have to go. I have to get back to my babies. Later on, we also see Haebom babysitting the baby. And when Sung-ho gets home and asks him how it went, he says, oh, I think the baby actually took care of me. And then there's a little chibi drawn of Haebom like a baby, and the baby is holding him and cradling him. So we can see that he feels taken care of by this child in a way. He feels, he's being loved by this child in a very fulfilling familial way. And then we also see Haebom many different times talking about his babies and referring to Sung-ho as his baby. There's one time he even asks, he says, is the baby down? And he goes, yeah, I just put her to sleep. And then he picks Sung-ho up and he says, then it's time for me to put my baby to sleep. And I just love that, this idea that we're all babies to somebody. And I call my husband baby, he calls me baby, and there's something about that of just wanting to be seen and held and patted on the back when you're crying, and you're never too old for that. And there's nothing like inherently sexual about that. There's nothing inherently infantilizing about that. There's just something pure and innocent and truthful about it. We all want to be taken care of. We all want to be doted upon, especially those of us who might not have been doted on that much. I was raised by a single mother and she did not have time to cradle or coddle us. I never had a father, never had somebody who could put me up on their shoulders and carry me around and, let me sit on their lap when I was sad. But when I was an adult, and a lot of people would call this daddy issues, but when I was an adult, I found that in a husband, somebody who could put me on his shoulders and walk me around a parade, or somebody who would wipe away my tears or hold me when I was sad. And I think we're all looking for that. And I think if we didn't have that as children, that's the kind of parent we do want to be. We want to make sure that when our kids grow up, they don't feel like they never had that as a child and that they never felt that kind of warmth and caring and nurturing. So the story hit on every mark for me. It really made me think about my own childhood and how I want to heal that inner child. And it also made me think about how I should be treating my significant other and how I should treat my children in the future. I thought all in all, the story was so beautiful. The spicy scenes, we have about 4 spicy scenes in 50 chapters, and they are gorgeous. They are censored, But I would say that they're very explicit in the activities, but they're short and they're sweet and they're not overdone. This story is not a story you're reading just for that kind of gratification. It's definitely a story you're reading for the emotional depth, for the plot of these people coming together and building a family. They've mentioned once they become boyfriends, official boyfriends, Haebom says several times that he kind of would like them to be an official family. And we see him reading a book called Dating for Marriage 101. So when you're invested in this story, you're invested to see that grow and see them become each other's forever family. And not so much about the spicy scenes, but I will say the spicy scenes are 10 out of 10. When you get them, they're very good. And the first time we see them together, both characters offer to bottom, which I thought was revolutionary because in these stories, even though all of the gay men I know personally are pretty much verse, in BL, we see a lot of characters sticking solely to being bottoms or tops, and the person who's the bottom usually is assumed to be the bottom because they are smaller in physique, which isn't totally fair or realistic. And in this story, both of them are beefy, both of them are strong, both of them offer to bottom. And then when Sung-ho is the one who does bottom, he is very strong about it. Haebom asks him if he's okay, if he's being hurt, and Sung-ho is like, I'm not hurt. I'm a man. I can handle this. You can give me more. I can take it. I was in the military, and you shouldn't underestimate my abilities. So I really loved that dynamic between them. There's nobody here is acting like a wussy, and nobody here is being forced into anything that they don't want to that they don't want to do. So in that first scene, we see them get together. There's the scene after that. They've just put the baby down to sleep and they are in a room and kind of do it up against a wall. And then we have a phone sex scene. And then the end of chapter 50, it ends. That's the last chapter. It just got released yesterday. It ends with a 69 panel. So I know that chapter 51 is going to be allspice. But that's basically all you get in 50 chapters are these 4, maybe 5 scenes. So if you're in it purely for the smut, this might not have enough smut for you, but I will say if you start reading the story, you're not going to stop. It's so cute. The drawings are adorable. The vibe of the whole story is so beautiful and compelling that I find that the spicy scenes are way more worthwhile because you're really invested in who these characters are and you really believe the emotional depth that they've built by the time they're taking it to that next level. One thing I really love about these characters is that after they become boyfriend and they're going around town, Haebom is very aware when people are talking about them or making uncomfortable comments about how they should be dating girls or where is their wife or why are they always hanging out together. And Haebom is always sticking up for them. He's always saying, leave us alone, get away from us. At one point, he offers to buy a car for Sung-ho, and Sung-ho says, no, you don't need to buy it for me, but I'd love if you took me to buy the car. And they go, and the salespeople are just kind of acting very toxic and saying, if you let me pick out the car that you're going to buy, you'll get lucky with your wife tonight. And Haebom shuts them all down. He says, leave us alone. We're shopping here together. We don't need you. And finally, when a woman salesperson comes to sell them a car and she says, this car will fit 2 men and a baby just perfectly. It will be perfect for a family of 3. When she acknowledges that relationship, Haebom buys the car from her. That's all that she needed to say was to validate who they were as a family. So you can see here that Haebom, as the leader of his village, is very strong and he's not going to let other people's judgments or other people's preconceived notions about them dictate how they feel about each other. And that granddaughter that I was talking about earlier, she does mention to Haebom, who it seems like she's known since she was a baby, that she can't support this relationship when she sees them kissing in private because they will not have a normal life and people will judge them and they'll feel lonely. And she doesn't want Haebom to feel lonely. So she does want him to pursue a life with a woman. And Haebom shuts that right down. And he says, I am happier with these two, with my boyfriend and his daughter, than I could ever be with a woman. And if you don't accept that, it doesn't matter to me because I'm going to keep living my life the way I want to live it with the people I want to live with. And later on, Sung-ho approaches her as well and says the same thing, that he's led a life as an orphan where he was alone and isolated. And whether or not people accept him, he'll never feel like that again because he has his baby and he has Haebom. So I really love that in this story, there is just an outright rejection of other people's opinions. It does not matter to these two, regardless of the fact that they live in the country in Korea where this is stigmatized. It doesn't matter to them what other people think. It doesn't matter to them whether or not they're going to be accepted or have to deal with difficulties. They admit outrightly to each other that it's all going to be worth it as long as they have one another. I also think that going forward in this story, we're going to see that young boy who follows around Haebom and had asked Sung-ho if he was his father. I think we might see maybe his grandma get sick, and those two, Haebom and Sung-ho, I think they might adopt him, which I would be really happy to see. And I think at that point we'll have to see as well how they're going to handle this outside pressure and the stigma about whether or not two men can raise a family. And I love that the story tackled such a hard reality and a hard conversation that happens every day. And here in America, where gay marriage is legal, and under our current presidency, who knows how long that's going to be true. But even here in America, where it is legal, people constantly think that just because two men in a relationship don't have a female counterpart to raise a child, they can't give them a well-rounded life. And I love that this story puts all of those accusations to rest and shows that there could not be two better parents than two parents who love each other and care for their child, regardless of their gender or their sexuality. As for predictions for the future of this story, these two are already dating, but I do predict they will get married. There's no way they wouldn't. Haebom is so direct and intentional with his love. He's 36 years old. He's ready to settle down. He wants to adopt this baby. He wants to be her father. He even asks the baby at one point, she's just a baby, so she can't talk, but he asks her, he is putting her down to bed while he's babysitting, and he says, "Can I be your other dad?" Definitely the easiest predictions to make for this story is that they'll get married and Haebom will adopt the baby, and I do predict that they'll adopt the other little boy as well. Unfortunately, I do think that probably means that little boy's grandma might get sick or die, so we'll have to kind of go through that tragedy. At the end of episode 50, and big spoiler, you should not have listened this far if you haven't read this story yet, but at the end of chapter 50, we also see Haebom, whose father abandoned him when he was a child. We see his father flying in on a plane, and we know this is his father because Haebom has blue eyes. And those blue eyes are very distinctive in a village with everybody who looks the same. We know that Haebom is probably of mixed race. And at the end of chapter 50, we see a man who looks like he might be pale-skinned and blue-eyed. Maybe he's European or American. We see him flying in an airplane, and we can only imagine that he's coming to where our characters are living, assumably to see Haebom. So I do think there's going to be a conflict there as well, where this father, I don't know if he's going to come in looking for money or looking for recognition or looking for a relationship with his son. But either way, I do expect that there's going to be a conflict there. The thing I'm the most worried for, and the prediction that I hope doesn't come true, is that Sung-ho's ex-girlfriend, the mother of his child, I'm worried that she's going to come back for the baby. And it's been said multiple times how much this baby looks like Sung-ho, so I'm hoping that she doesn't come back and look for the baby and say, he's not even your baby, it was somebody else's baby. The timeline doesn't totally match up for them. Sung-ho says, my ex-girlfriend, who I'd broken up with a year before, brought me a newborn baby. And we all know it takes 9 months to carry a baby to full term, which would mean that they'd broken up 3 months before she conceived. So unless they had a one-night stand after the breakup, the math doesn't totally add up. So I'm really nervous that that ex-girlfriend is going to come back into the picture and say, I want my baby back, and there's no reason you should even have this baby because I lied to you, you're not the real father, I just knew the real father wouldn't have taken her, and I knew that you would do what was right if I gave her to you. So I'm very worried about that ex-girlfriend coming into the picture, and even if she doesn't claim that someone else is the paternal father, I have this like horrible feeling that she's going to come back and say, I want my daughter, I want custody, I want time with her. At which point, I'm sure both men, Sung-ho and Haebom, would look at their own lives and their lack of maternal nurturing in their lives and want to give baby unknown. I think they'd want to give her time with her mother. So if she does come back into the picture, I doubt that they would fight it. I'm sure that they would give some custody to that woman, but it makes me really nervous, very nervous on that front. I do think that she's going to come back into the picture. I just don't see how she couldn't, especially with so many themes of inner child healing and forgiveness and parental neglect. And Haebom's dad coming back into the picture, it just feels like that's on the brink of happening. So super worried about that prediction, but it feels like it's in the cards. I've seen some other people on like TikTok talk about the rain in this story and how there's a big storm coming and how oftentimes in Korean manhwa, there's like a car accident that happens due to weather. So I'm really crossing my fingers that we don't have any tragedy like that. I don't think it's this writer's style. I don't think it's where the story's going. So I'm just going to leave that alone and say that's not my prediction, but I will say that's other people on the internet's prediction. So just watch out. Let's all pray that does not happen. And with that, that kind of wraps up my summary of this story and my predictions for the future. And now I want to launch into my favorite part of this whole podcast, which is talking about my delusional boyfriend. My delusional boyfriend from this story is hands down Haebom. Haebom wants to learn how to change the baby's diaper. He wants to learn how to bathe the baby. He wants to learn how to use that little baby Bjorn that straps around your chest so that he can hold the baby wherever they go. He makes sure that the baby is out of the sun. He makes sure that Sung-ho has good transportation, and he supports him when Sung-ho gets a job and has to go to Seoul for an interview. He watches the baby overnight and he supports Sung-ho. He is rooting for him. He tells him he's the best man for the job. He's protective and caring for Sung-ho without being overprotective or getting in the way of him living his life. He's by his side. He's not hovering over him. And I just think that Haebom hits the nail on the head in every way. His character design is gorgeous. He is the most muscular, veiny, beefy man you've ever seen. He compares Sung-ho to a bag of rice at one point. He says, you weigh nothing more than a bag of rice, and I could throw you over my shoulder easily. So, chef's kiss to his design. He has like a kind of mullet. I don't even know if you call it a mullet. It's almost like a wolf cut. He's got this shaggy hair that hangs in front of his blue eyes. He's always kind of wearing joggers and a tight black t-shirt and tennis shoes. I love that he takes care of the elderly people in town. I love that he oftentimes calls Sung-ho his baby, and when he's looking at him, he looks at him as if he's just like a young boy who needs to be cared for, even though he's only a few years younger than him. And I personally love to be babied and I love to be doted on. And I just think Haebom would be the perfect boyfriend for anybody because he would see you as the most precious thing in the world. Unless, of course, you had your own child. In that case, he would see both of you as the most precious thing in the whole world. And he'd go to the end of the earth to make sure nothing ever happened to you, that you never had to lift a finger if you didn't want to lift your fingers, that you were cooked for, that the house was clean for you, that the yard was weeded, that you had fresh vegetables. Everything that you could need, this man is going to make sure is there for you without a question, without you having to ask. Haebom is 1000% my delusional boyfriend from this story. And to be honest, I think he might be my number one delusional boyfriend overall. And there's some like prejudice here because I just read the story. So when I think about Taewon and when I think about Ah Juicy and my other delusional boyfriends, they're not as recent in my mind, but I will say that there's something about Haebom having a book that says Dating for Marriage 101, asking the baby to be the baby's father, saying, would you let me be your other daddy? These things are so forthright. They're so intentional. He knows what he wants. He's going for what he wants, and he's not going to let anybody get in the way of that. And he's going to cherish those people and treat them right for the rest of their days. And I think he's my number one boyfriend. Would I date Haebom in real life? Abso-fucking-lutely. There's nobody better who I could take out of a fictional story, put into a real life setting, and see no problems with it whatsoever. everything about Haebom's character, the fact that he's rich, but he isn't arrogant, the fact that he works hard, he wakes up early every day and goes to bed late every night, making sure that the people in his community are attended to. He shovels their driveways, he fixes their roofs, he makes sure that they have the kind of feed they need for their cattle. He makes sure that there's food cooked for them at the village celebrations. Everything he does is so dreamy. If I could pick one character from any story and plop them into my town just for the betterment of the community and the society, it would be Haebom. So yes, I would absolutely date him in real life. I think he is the dreamiest, and I'll just say it right now. Haebom's my number one delusional boyfriend at this moment. He has taken the throne, the seat. He has the crown, so to speak. I love Haebom. I can't get over him. The way his chibi is drawn as this like sea lion is so cute. The little sea lion is like cheeky and blushes all the time. And whenever he feels proud of himself for taking care of his loved ones, he does his little like flipper dances. The chibi is so adorable. The drawing of the real character is so beautiful. And I think he'd make a gorgeous man in real life. So yes, number one delusional boyfriend. Congratulations to Haebom. You did it. You stole my heart. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion of Our Sunny Days. This has been such a joy to read, and I really love sharing it with you guys. If you have anything to say about who your delusional boyfriend is, when you found this story and what it means to you, or how you liked reading along for book club, please go over to the Delusional Boyfriend Book Club website. It's delusionalboyfriendbookclub.com, and there's a discussion forum, and you can leave a comment right in there and I'll respond right back to you. I'm really good at replying. So please go over and engage there. Also follow us on our social medias, TikTok, Delusional BF Book Club, on Instagram, Delusional Boyfriend Book Club. We're on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe on YouTube so you get a notification every time we post something. And on our other social medias, we'll definitely be posting like memes and talking points about this story and all of our other stories. Next month, we will be reading Roses and Champagne for our manhwa. So it's going to be red flags all around. So I hope you enjoyed this little green flag interlude while you had it, but we're going to be getting a little darker and a little scarier and a little more toxic next month in April. So if you're just here for the manhwa, go ahead and start reading that one now. If you're following along for the anime, the manga, and the romance novel of the month, make sure to go to the website, delusionalboyfriendbookclub.com, and under DBBC calendar, there's a title for everything that we are watching and reading every month. Thank you so much for following along, and thank you so much for watching and listening. If you're on a podcast, make sure to hit subscribe. That way the episodes auto download, because I am talking to a couple other creators in the BL community about doing an interview with them about their delusional boyfriends, their favorite stories, how they got into the niche, and what they're currently reading. So if you want to hear those kinds of interviews, make sure you subscribe, because they won't always fall on the set podcast days. We usually drop our podcast for the manga and anime on the 5th of the month, the manhwa on the 15th, and the romance novel on the 25th. So if we do any special episodes, they'll be posted on different days. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel. That way you get a notification if we do those special episodes. And until next time, remember, sometimes the delusion is the solution. Bye.